Hi, I'm here with Fiona Howarth, the CEO of Octopus EV, and you could either be watching this on YouTube or you might be listening on our podcast. So we're going to be talking about what Octopus EV does, particularly focusing on the concept of salary sacrifice in a bit. But first of all, and a few other things of great interest. But first of all, let's start with what Octopus EV actually does.
Great to meet you. Octopus EV aims to make it simple to make the switch from petrol or diesels to electric. So everything from the car, the finance, the charging, and the energy supply.
So tell us about your role.
Sure. Well, I run the business. So
you're the queen.
the queen. Yeah.
The queen of Octopus EV.
I'm not sure that was the team called me, but I'm wrong with it. I get the opportunity to basically work across the team in terms of everyone from the proposition and product development teams through to the financing, through to the sales teams and the operations. So really pulling it together, setting the direction, and having the pleasure of speaking to people like you.
Oh, thank you. You're so flattering. So what actually brought you to electric vehicles and Octopus EV in particular?
Well, EVs, I've actually been interested in the future of cars and transport since I was a teenager. And actually renewable energy and things. And my physics teacher, unbelievably, taught me through the fact that we were burning all these fossil fuels to power our houses and power our cars. It's bad for the environment and we'd run out of them at some point. So I was fascinated to see what we might be driving in 50 years' time. That set me on a journey. I investigated it through university. I spent some time at BMW on hydrogen cars. And actually hydrogen cars were far away, electric cars were closer, but still quite far away. So I went to do some other things. And it was about 4 years ago. And I was on mat leave and I was having a conversation with somebody driving a Tesla. And there's that conversation you go, but do they actually go very far? But where do you charge it? But actually, are they actually any good? And she was like, yeah, have you not driven one yet? And I was like, no. It was time.
So did this person actually want to tell you a lot about their Tesla? Because I believe that's the kind of the cliched norm of people who own Teslas.
Yeah, I don't think she was the driving force in their household behind having the car. Actually, I was more interested, I think, than she was. And so I think I was asking a lot of questions. And I kind of was a bit blown away by the fact that these EVs, these electric cars, have started to come of age. And I just didn't really know. And I had had such an interest and passion about it when I was younger. And yet I just hadn't realised how good they'd become. So I was really asking a lot of questions like, but genuinely, like, where can you charge it up? But can you go on longer journeys? And she was like, yeah, we do. Actually last weekend we stopped at this manor house. There was a Tesla charger at this manor house in the M1. And she's like, and we got out and we went and had a nice coffee in their lounge area. And then we had our little child, the older child had been playing on the lawn later. And I was like, sounds quite idyllic, doesn't it? We were stopped. So I really was asking questions. And between when I'd worked in it first and 4 years ago, I'd spent time in energy. And looking at this transition that we're going to go through, and we are going through now, of more renewables on the energy system, and then this rise of electric vehicles. Now, renewables are naturally intermittent in terms of when the wind blows, and obviously the sun shines during the day, not necessarily in winter times at peak when we might be eating our dinners. So how do you store that renewable energy to be able to use it at the times you really want it? And of course, when you then got electric cars and you've got batteries on driveways, you've got storage, you've got big batteries just sitting there that you can fill up with sunshine and fill up with wind power when the wind blows, and then you can use it at peak times. So, I obviously enjoy this kind of thing. So I was busy having this chat with her about her Tesla, and I was like, how big is the battery? And I confess I looked it up that night when I got home, and I was like, that could power your house for 5 days. I was just, it's fascinating to me that actually that could really fill up on renewable energy and keep your home going for such a long period of time. I thought it was really interesting. I think she confessed it was Greg Jackson's partner, and I believe there was probably a conversation that happened. So Greg's the group CEO at Octopus Energy Group. And I think a conversation happened because then I got a message saying, hey Fiona, we've spoken before about coming to Octopus.
So you got headhunted.
Maybe we're doing some stuff with electric cars. Do you want to come and have a chat? And so that was how I ended up back into doing electric cars here.
So obviously there is a solid connection between electric vehicles and energy suppliers, because one benefits the other and vice versa. So what is the logistical connection between Octopus EV and Octopus Energy Company? I can see from you won't be able to see this in the audience, but we're sitting in an office that is and now our cameraman is going to go and just show a shot of that. Is that this office here has both Octopus Energy and Octopus EV, and presumably some other divisions of Octopus within it as well.
So Greg, we just talked about, he's a serial entrepreneur, and he has spotted a lot of opportunities in this space and ways in which we can help transition the economy to a more renewable, green, energy-based economy. So with that brings obviously things in how do we help people make that switch to electric cars. There are a number of barriers which we can come back to around how we do that, and of course that's where our team are kind of working and trying to remove some of those barriers and make it really easy. There's also things like electric car charging. So okay, who's installing your charge point? So now Octopus Energy Services can come and install the charge point. And actually, if you get a smart energy tariff where you can charge up your car in the middle of the night for a third of the cost of what you might pay during the day, you need a smart meter. So actually, the Octopus Energy Services team can now install the charge point, but they can also install your smart meter at the same time. So you get a clever energy tariff, but then you get the smart charging that optimizes with it. So anyway, that's the energy services team, and then there's other teams across the business working on things like heat pumps or energy generation, or working with EV charge point networks as well to create the electric juice network card, which you can use at multiple different charge point networks on the same card, all going on your same bill, really simplifying that process of public charging. So across the board, I would describe it as smart, passionate teams working together to really solve the problems that people are facing as they're making this switch and as this transition happens, to do it in a smart and clever way.
So obviously there is a bigger power struggle going on here, and I think we'll come back to that maybe when we talk about the hydrogen situation towards the end of this conversation. But between traditional energy companies, the oil and gas industry, and electricity suppliers, because they're going to be, oil and gas is going to be the big loser potentially if everyone's charging their electric vehicles at home, and I'm sure they won't like it very much.
Well, I think they are. It's very interesting when you speak to people that come from oil and gas companies, because actually a number of them are still talking about the fact that they're expecting you to charge up at essentially all the petrol stations. And I'm an EV driver myself, I believe you are too. And actually, if you do have the opportunity to charge up at home, it's just like a mobile phone, right? You're just going to charge up overnight. It's super convenient. In fact, the idea of me now having to detour to go and fill up my car is actually a bit foreign. It's a bit inconvenient to think about that. So, but actually, I think a lot of them are still talking about that mindset of, detouring to go and charge up your car. And sometimes we will need that level of service, right? Sometimes we will want convenient fast charging when we're on longer journeys. I've just been down to Cornwall and back, and certainly to top up my car on that journey, it was nice to be able to access, efficient, smart, fast charging.
Says the superchargers.
Says the superchargers, but actually many more as well. Actually, we've enjoyed an Instavolt journey, powered journey quite recently, and Osprey and a number of other networks. And I'm really excited actually that GridServe have taken over the electric highway as well, because I think we're seeing a lot of investment going into that now too.
I think most people are pretty excited about that
yeah.
in the EV business.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's been a long time coming, so we're really, really excited about that. So I think there is a time and a place for those kind of public charging networks, and of course we've seen BP have gone into that space with the acquisition of ChargeMaster and investing in that, and now they're doing a great job also. There's a rapid charger just around the corner from my house, and actually at times if I've had multiple EVs for different events, that's been super convenient for me. And actually one of my neighbours I know still uses it, even though she could charge at home. She does still use the BP rapid charger. So there is a space for them, and also Shell, of course, with the New Motion network. In fact, the New Motion network being part of that electric juice network that we were talking about earlier. So there is an opportunity for them, and they will continue to play in that space. But I think it'll be interesting to see where else they might look to play as well. Of course, Shell have also invested in their own energy business as well, so they have Shell.
I think they know the writing's on the wall. Charging is one of the things. We were talking about this earlier before we started recording about, the common tropes and cliches that we have to combat online. Charging is one of them. Another one, of course, is cost. And so, one of the main things we wanted to talk about is obviously Octopus EV and what Octopus EV is doing to help people afford electric vehicles because, for the time being, at least they are more expensive than petrol and diesel vehicles. So one particular vehicle that you've introduced is salary sacrifice. Can you explain what that is and how it works?
Yeah, absolutely. We surveyed a number of people, and 49% of them actually said the main thing putting them off getting an electric car was cost. So we also spotted this opportunity around salary sacrifice where by paying out of your gross salary, you can get the use of a brand new electric car and save on income tax and national insurance. So people are typically saving between 30 and 40% every month on their monthly car costs. And actually they can include not just their brand new EV, but also their servicing and maintenance, their tyres, breakdown recovery, even insurance. And so we really set about investigating how easy it was for people to be able to do that. And we found that it was tough. We partnered and we worked with a number of different organisations, but actually what needs to happen is we need to be able to offer great service to the employers to be able to set that up. So businesses need to be able to set that up at low risk or no risk then, and at no cost, because basically a lot of businesses don't want a lot of liability with that, and they're nervous about what would happen, say, if James took a really great, Tesla Model 3 performance and then left for some reason. Never do that. But if he left, what would happen with that car? Or was that a responsibility of the HR team?
You'd never be able to catch them in the performance.
I like that. And then, so how do we make it easy for the employers? So we've set about setting up a really specialist scheme which makes it as easy as possible for the employers, but then also for the employees, because it's their first time normally switching to an electric car. So occasionally we might get a serial EV driver, but for the most part, it's the first time they're thinking about what is the range of EVs out there? How am I going to charge it? How am I going to do the longer journey? What is the Instavolt charger that I might use to be able to get to Cornwall, or the electric juice card that's going to help me when I go and visit Granny? So those kinds of things, we've got a team set up to help the employers, but also to help those employees. And in fact, we actually can take a range of cars. We can go out to office spaces and to local venues and run EV events. So we can actually get those employees down into the cars, they can test drive them for themselves. And I think you'll probably remember the first time you drove an EV, and it's exciting. And it's that thing, we found that over 80% of people are more likely to take that EV once they've driven it, because it just builds confidence and you actually start to realise how great they are.
It wasn't just exciting, it was sickening. Because it was,
what was it? What was your first EV?
No, I tell a lie actually, because the first EV I drove, this is quite rather ironic because we're talking about charging, because it was a Nissan Leaf, and it was I actually met Robert Llewellyn at that particular moment because a friend of mine was working with him on another project, and it was at the SMMT shows. That was 10 years ago.
Yeah, wow.
And we were having an office discussion about a recent Top Gear from that era when they basically made fun of a Nissan Leaf and how you couldn't charge it. So that's actually my first experience. But my first experience of a modern EV was probably driving a test drive of a Tesla Model 3 Performance and being unable to speak after I'd put the hammer down off of entering a motorway from 0 on a ramp to 70. Fun. Obviously, wouldn't go faster than 70. Totally illegal. So yeah, so that's why it's sickening, because that's literally your brain is probably still at the junction when you've the motorway. We've done a few
videos with GoPro cameras, which we've done when we've been test driving people for the first time, and the facial expressions where they go, oh, yeah. They're just absolute magic to watch back, and you can put them to music and you can just see that moment.
I was just watching a video that was basically people reacting to the plaid from America.
Yeah.
But anyway, so talking about the salary sacrifice,
yeah.
Which companies can get that, and what do they have to do? How do people organise it?
So we've made it available to companies of all shapes and sizes. So you don't have to have a minimum employee number or anything like that. What we have found is that, of course, it's like setting up another leasing scheme. So typically we would look for a company to have 3 years worth of accounts, but even where they don't, we still look to work with our funders to be able to see if we can set up another arrangement. So we've actually worked with other innovative companies that are younger than 3 years still to be able to set them up. So open to all. We have found as well with the employees that they are saving thousands of pounds. And actually what's most exciting for me is that salary sacrifice is now making EVs cheaper than their petrol counterparts. So even in the case where you might have an Audi e-tron, for example, which is a £61,000 plus car, versus a Audi Q5 diesel, which is a £49,000 car, it's a huge difference. But actually, on salary sacrifice, it's cheaper. It's cheaper per month to run, even before you start to include things like insurance. So to give you an example, maybe an ID3. ID3 is a good example for this versus a Golf because they are very, very comparable. So an ID3 actually, on your gross salary sacrifice might be about £330 a month coming out of your gross salary. But after your income tax and national insurance savings, you're actually paying around about £230 a month if you're a 20% tax rate payer. So you're saving £100 every month. So let's take that to £230 compared to a Golf on a personal lease, fully maintained, is about £260. So even versus that petrol equivalent, even before you talk about savings on fuel, it's cheaper to get the electric version, the ID3, than it is to get the petrol Golf.
And could you do that with the petrol version though? Could you have a salary sacrifice on the Golf, or is this to do with grants on the...
Yes, so the benefit in kind rates. It's a really great point. So what actually happens is you save on your income tax and national insurance, and you pay some company car tax, so the benefit in kind tax rate. And actually how that's worked out is you take that tax rate, you multiply it by the value of the vehicle, and then your own personal tax rate. What's happened is the government dropped that benefit in kind rate to EVs last year to 0. This year it's gone to 1%, and for the next 3 years it's locked in at 2%. So it's negligible. So the savings that you're making on the income tax and national insurance completely overshadow any tax pretty much that you might have to pay on the company car tax.
So who's actually buying the car?
The company leases the car. So the company leases the car from us, and then the company makes that available to the employees. So it's an employee benefit scheme.
But there are some beneficial rates for companies leasing electric cars as well, isn't there, as a corporate?
Yeah, so, we can go and work, actually, we do, with the manufacturers to negotiate terms, essentially. So we can negotiate better rates on those vehicles, so because we're doing en masse to make it available to the companies. So in the same way, for very large companies, they might go and negotiate those directly with the car manufacturers themselves and say, if I took X hundred cars from you, what discounts might I be able to get? We could do that, and we do that on behalf of all of our clients.
So let's broaden the conversation out a little bit. So we talked about charging, we've talked about the price of the cars. What other EV hurdles do we need to leap over in a very Olympic fashion?
Yeah,
trying to be topical there.
I think it's worth talking about the charging a tiny bit more as well. Just in the context of when we did ask those people what their blockers were, number one was cost, the next was range, and the third was the number of charge points that are available. Now, as we know, the range has increased significantly. So we've now got well over 30 vehicles available that can go over 100 miles on a single charge, many of them 200 or even 300 miles on a single charge, which is more than most people need for a week. So you only have to charge up once overnight at home for a week, or you can charge up every day if you just top up every day. But also works for much longer journeys. So the range is there. And then in terms of those public charge points, if you do those longer journeys, or if you can't charge up on your driveway, actually the number of charge points has absolutely exploded over the last couple of years. So there are 8,500 petrol stations, and about 2 years ago I tweeted that the number of locations that you could charge up your EV at matched the number of petrol stations, so it was at 8,500. Now there's nearly 16,000 locations, so it's almost doubled in just 2 years. And we are seeing that absolutely skyrocket, and particularly the superchargers, so the much faster chargers. So I think that's very exciting in itself. And I think as people learn about that and see that and test that out, and more people are out there talking about their own experiences, we'll see people change their perceptions in terms of the number of places they can charge up. So that's exciting. The next thing I'd talk about, though, is maybe the supply of the vehicles. So what we have found is that with this very exciting uptake, partly driven by the company car tax being so low for EVs, is that the lead times on these cars are going out. There aren't actually that many of them available to buy and to source at the moment. So what ends up happening is we see less terms or higher prices potentially on EVs than we do on the petrol or diesel counterparts, but then we also see the lead times push out. So for example, if you wanted to order some of the Porsche Taycans with us at the moment, we have made some arrangements, but for a new build, a new spec, actually we're looking at Q2, Q3 of next year. So that's a year away for you to be able to get your new car. And for many people, actually you don't start thinking about your new car until a few months before you need it. So actually it's much better for us to start talking about it with you sooner, but also we're working with the car manufacturers how we can improve some of those supply constraints. There are other manufacturers as well and other brands that are suffering a similar thing. And so really it's how do we look at that supply chain for electric cars to really help accelerate the production of them and accelerate and improve the number that come here to the UK.
Yeah, I mean, that whole supply thing, I mean, there have been some really exciting new SUVs come out recently. The Skoda Enyaq is one, the Mustang Mach-E is another.
The Mach-E is another one that was being called out by my team earlier today in terms of longer wait times, We're looking at definitely 2022 for many of them.
But there are window of opportunities there because the Model Y is going to be even longer getting here. That's probably, if you look at the way that's performed in America and China, it's selling like hotcakes, and people would want to buy it, but then probably won't wait a year and a half for it.
Well, that's it. And also with the UK, we struggle because, of course, we're right-hand drive. So actually, they typically will go to a lot of left-hand drive countries first before they'll come here to the UK. So certainly being able to look at that supply chain and how we can maximise that and accelerate that switch to EV.
So what role do you see government playing in the move to e-mobility?
Well, I do.
I said the word properly.
Yeah, no, I do think there's an opportunity here for us to now look at how we influence the supply of vehicles. Because also, a lot of people say, we're not selling the cars because there aren't the charge points. I think that's a distraction because there are a lot of charge points and so many people can do it at home. So if there were more vehicles, so it's like, how do we look at providing incentives to those car manufacturers and helping with any financial implications by selling more EVs than petrol or diesel cars? Because I believe they make less money at the moment on those. And things like grants really help. So we see that in other countries, and actually other countries have had much better grants than we have here in the UK now. But things like salary sacrifice and maintaining that and the low benefit in kind rate is really critical as well, so that those kind of benefits that we do have that are really, really impressive, we hang on to and we look after them. But then the next one, the government have just said that they're going to consult on around the kind of zero emission vehicle mandate, the ZEV mandate. That's actually really exciting, I think, because that also provides a new incentive and a new requirement for manufacturers to bring a certain percentage of their vehicles be electric by a certain date. So
we've seen huge announcements by Stellantis, Mercedes, obviously VW has been going big in this area for a while now.
Yeah.
But I mean, and I think the people we argue with online are really concerned about their lovely diesel being banned, but actually I think it's going to happen. This is when do you see EVs taking over from petrol and diesel?
Yeah, well, I think actually there's a huge wave of customer demand that's being unmet. So it's really about the supply of the vehicles for me now. So I think it could happen quicker than people realise. So although we've got the 2030 date by which no new petrol or diesels can be sold, I actually think it'll happen quicker than that.
Yeah, again, we were talking about this before we started doing this on camera about if you get into because people are saying 2 or 3 years time EV is going to be hit parity. When that happens, are you really going to choose a car that costs you more to run for the same money?
Well, let's take that example again of the Golf versus the ID3. So the Golf, we had £260 a month for a personal lease, or £230 a month net if you're a 20% tax rate payer on the ID3. So it's already cheaper, and that's for the car plus maintenance. Let's overlay the fuel costs, right? So let's say typically it might be 10p per mile to drive a petrol car, maybe more actually, depending on how you drive and what car you've got. But let's be relatively conservative, 10p per mile. On Octopus Go, so Octopus Energy, we've set up one of the early things I did actually was to design an energy tariff for EV drivers. So we've got a 4-hour window in the middle of the night, and it's 5p per kilowatt hour compared to a typical day rate of 15p or more. So it's a third of the price to charge up at this window. And that 5p per kilowatt hour, you're probably in the region of 1 to 2p per mile. So you could be saving 90% of your fuel costs. Now, I think a lot of people are spending, say, out of lockdown, £150 a month on their fuel. Suddenly they switch to electric, and that's £15 a month on fuel. So already, the car was already cheaper, and now they've got another £100 plus back in their pocket every month. Why would you do otherwise? So I think the demand is there, and I think then they're just going to suddenly, we'll see the lead times go out longer and longer. And again, there's going to be such a pull on those car manufacturers to ramp up their manufacturing. And the ones I think that can get here with more volume quicker will really win.
So you spent some time working with BMW on fuel cells. It's a question that always, it's part of that cliche range. Where do I put my 18 children? Cost, pulling 7 caravans on the car, can't do all that with an EV. And then finally, the last thing is, I think I'll wait for hydrogen. So what do you think about the possibilities in the future for hydrogen?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's the same challenges we had, when I looked at this 20 years ago. It's the chicken and the egg, right? So actually, what comes first, the cars or the filling stations? Actually, for you to want to buy a hydrogen car, to drive a hydrogen car, you're going to want the 8,500 petrol stations to now be offering you hydrogen, right? Because that's the convenience that everyone's looking for. And by the way, we're not going to have hydrogen, it's unlikely we're going to have hydrogen pumped to your house in the same way anytime soon.
Sorry.
Sorry.
That's a bit dangerous.
So what's going to come first? And at what point are we going to invest in switching over these 8,000 petrol stations to now offering hydrogen? And how quickly is that going to take? And actually how, to be able to support that investment, you need the vehicles to be able to use it. But to be able to get the cars, you need to have the charging, the filling stations in this case. So who's going to invest first? Are you going to get the cars at scale and at volume without the filling stations, or are you going to do the filling stations and invest huge amounts of money there? Actually, we've already done that with EVs, right? So EVs, actually, we've just had a massive advantage. Electricity's everywhere. We've already got it at our homes. We've got it at granny's homes. We've got it at holiday homes. And actually, we now have had all of the motorway service stations have fast chargers, etc. The investment's already been made into that, and now it's accelerating in it, and it's going away from us to be just really exciting and hugely convenient. So to be able to do the same then for hydrogen is a huge effort, and it's going to take years. And actually, I think the momentum and the enthusiasm to be able to make that switch once we've already gone to electric will be much lower. And what we also see, one of the things we get pushed back on as well is, and actually there are emissions that are generated, say, during the process of manufacturing the batteries. But actually we see that coming down significantly too. So there's a huge amount of innovation in that space, which I think is easier and will overtake concerns in that space even before you invest in the whole of the hydrogen network. And let's not forget that the hydrogen is being created, hopefully, by renewable sources, but in some cases there are other lobbies to create it through other sources too. So hydrogen itself is not by default always going to be clean.
I think 95% of it is still grey, isn't it? It comes from natural gas.
Sadly. So I think they're trying to change the colour grey, though, to being something a bit more
Well, there was blue and green, and I think there's some other colours have come in. Yeah. Rainbow edition of hydrogen.
I would caveat it, though, because I do think there are opportunities for hydrogen.
Oh, yeah.
And I think there are use cases where I think it will be really valuable. So things like larger vehicles, like buses, HGVs, waste vehicles, for example. All of these opportunities, I think, are very different, and actually there is a big opportunity there. And in fact, we are looking at green hydrogen supply across the Octopus Energy group with the Octopus Hydrogen team. So they're already looking at that, and they're even looking at how to support companies that are looking to get vehicles in that space and so forth. So I do think there is use cases. I just don't think that we'll be all driving hydrogen cars in 10 years' time.
Well, I think there was an announcement just today about Orkney and wave power. And I feel, knowing what's going on in Orkney, that's probably going to be used to produce hydrogen.
Yeah, it's quite exciting.
Yeah.
Orkney are really forward thinkers in this space, and just the amount of renewable generation and EV drivers they've got is just fantastic.
So just to finish up, a couple of quick fire questions. What's the best thing you like about EVs?
What's the best thing I like about EVs, other than they're good for the planet and they are fun to drive? I really enjoy it with my kids. They not only enjoy the acceleration too, but there are, of course, in a Tesla, a lot of Easter eggs, a lot of fun things that they discover, and they particularly, for example, like the fart machine. But essentially that's driven because they're tech on wheels. And so actually that enables us to watch Netflix if we arrive early for something, or if we're, delayed, or we can play games, or they can set it on Christmas mode where the car picture turns into a Santa sleigh, you know, and all those kind of things.
Have you tried the whoopee cushion mode?
They love it. I mean, each time they get a new friend in the car, they're like, "Hey, mummy, can we do the fart machine?" They think it's really fun, but it is enabled because it's tech on wheels. It's really it's the, you know, the mobile phone, the kind of smartphone equivalent to like the Nokia that we used to be driving, like the Nokia we used to be driving.
Well,
but that's it, right? So you're
almost driving a Nokia.
Yeah, and some people might still enjoy a Nokia now, and do you know what? In a few years' time, we might still occasionally enjoy a classic car too. but for now, we're all really enjoying smartphones because they're smart and they're tech.
That'd be the 3310 of EVs.
That's it. Yeah, there will be the 3310 of the car world.
So I think another quick fire question. I think we already know the answer because you just implied it. Which EV do you drive?
I do drive a Model 3. Yeah, I drive a Tesla Model 3.
Yeah. And finally, if it wasn't a Model 3, which do you think? What's your favourite EV at the moment?
Other than a Model 3, I mean, there are so many good EVs now. This was a much easier question a few years ago. I love the fact that we've got things like the ID3 and the Kona and the e-Niro, which have really tackled that kind of section of the market, which has made it more affordable with really, really good range. I think they're really exciting. I mean, you can't beat a drive in the Porsche Taycan, for example. I mean, I wouldn't turn that down if I had the opportunity.
Absolutely. Great. Well, thanks so much, Fiona. It's been really interesting. Lots of interesting points. So thanks for watching, everybody, or listening if you're on the podcast. I've been James Morris, and this has been Fiona Howarth. And please don't forget, if you're watching on YouTube, to like, comment, subscribe. And if you're listening on our podcast, also do whatever, like, comment, subscribe. Come back to our webpage, WhichEV.net. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, I just mentioned, Twitter, not TikTok yet, as much as some people in our team would like. You've been a great audience.